Hey, what's up, guys? It's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm here with Josh. And at this point, I've lost count of how many locals he's actually won with his Melodious deck. So we're going to go ahead and get straight on into this, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of our notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon in the description below for all those awesome rewards. And definitely check it out when we're live, guys, because Josh is actually the moderator whenever we're live. So yeah. So anyways, guys, let's go ahead and get straight on in this. So how many locals have you won with this at this point?
2 so far. We're going for the 3rd tonight, and we're going to make it.
I'm definitely sure you are. I played against you with this because it's very insane how you built this deck. So
you showed me what you're playing. I am scared, but I'm not scared enough.
All right, let's go ahead and see what you're playing in this build.
Sick. So I am playing pure Melodious because I like my pure decks. I think it's more fun when you're able to play fully in one archetype rather than just mishmashing a bunch of weird stuff together. So I know a lot of people have their ways of doing deck profiles. Mine's going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to start with what I'll call my starters. So the first starter, of course, is going to be very standard. It's going to be the 3 Refrain, the Melodious Songstress. She's going to be the best normal summon of the deck. She's going to get you access to any other of your Melodious monsters. There's some cool combos you can do with that. And then she's also a pendulum scale. Her pendulum effect doesn't matter if you're just getting into the deck. It's a very advanced thing, I think, but every bit of text on her card is very valuable. To go along with her, the best starter in the deck is going to be the Ostinato.
Oh, those QCRs are so pretty.
Ignore the Platinum Secret. We're looking for the 3rd. We're looking for the 3rd.
But dude, those are so cool. I helped you get one of these too.
Yes, this when I first started playing this deck, it was all commons and supers, and now I'm getting all the shinies.
Yeah, it's like Konami knows this is your favorite deck, bro.
They know how to extract. I was like, I've got all the money I've spent on this deck. I don't need to spend any more. Now they're like, okay, Konami, I'll spend more money on it. So Ostinato is going to be sort of like your branded fusion or your red ice fusion. It's going to summon. It's going to fusion summon something using cards from your deck. It's not going to lock you into anything. There's one downside. It's going to pop the monster that you summon at the end of the turn, but don't worry, you will never keep it on the board. If you do, you're in a bad spot. But this is going to get you into almost everything you want, and we'll kind of go over what your primary target will be in a minute. Your other starter is going to be the first movement solo. This is not the best starter. It's going to lock you into Melodious for the whole turn, both before and after. And it also requires, just like Ostinato, that you have no monsters on your side of the field.
Oh, they kind of conflict a little bit.
Yeah, so you can't use both. And you can't like normal summon Refrain and then activate Ostinato. These are going to have to be what you start with if they're in your hand. So this one's going to special summon a Melodious from your deck that's level 4 or lower. Of course, it's going to lock you. So we're going to have a few things in our extra deck that are sort of utility that aren't Melodious. And this is going to stop that. So you have to be very careful when you're doing your starters that you don't accidentally lock yourself out of something you're going to need. And those are our 9 great starters. Our kind of backup starter and somewhat extender is going to be our other pendulum monster, Couplet, the Melodious Songstress, the other side of Refrain. So they're both going to share an ability that if a fusion monster is summoned and they're in your extra deck, they're going to be scaled immediately. If she's added to hand, such as off of Refrain, you're going to special summon a level 4 or lower from hand or grave. You don't target, you just do it. And it's also going to fetch for us, when it's scaled, our Melodious Concerto. So Concerto is our fusion spell. It'll fusion from hand or field, just like any poly. But it also fuses from our scales. So if our Refrain and our Couplet are scaled, we'll be able to fuse using those, make a fusion, and then because a fusion monster was summoned, they'll get scaled again. So you kind of get to fuse for nothing. And the other thing is, if it's in your graveyard and a fusion monster goes to grave, you're going to put this to bottom and you're going to draw a card, letting you reset the one card, which is why we have one Concerto in the deck, because we can reset it very easily.
It's so cool that the deck has like 2 different forms of polying with Concerto, and it has Ostinato that can both fuse. That's so cool.
And we've got another one. I don't play polymerization in this deck. Some people will play a card called Tam Tam. It lets you search polymerization or fusion substitute because it's polymerization. But I don't find I need it. I use a lot of hand traps and non-engine to help fight stuff that's going on. and then I just extend with the Melodious stuff.
It makes sense because you've already got like 9 starters in the main deck, and then also you have Couplet too. Like that's hyper consistent.
And then there's a couple other ways to start, which actually in my extenders, which are about to come up, you'll see a little bit about that. We'll talk about it a little bit more in the extra, but there's ways beyond these to get your play started. There's if you're creative enough with the deck, it starts opening up really heavy.
Which you absolutely are, which is why you come in first twice with this deck.
My favorite was playing under Droll. You drolled me, and I looked at the hand and went, sick, and made full board under Droll. I was like, okay.
We don't have to search.
We're gonna add stuff to hand from graveyard and not from deck. That's where that refrain pendulum scale ability, it foolish burials. It doesn't come up often, but in our game it did. I foolish something and pulled it from the grave with another.
I remember that. That was crazy. All right.
So next is going to be our extenders. So this is one that some people will play 2 of. I play 3 of Sonata.
I totally agree with that. I think in my build, I also play 3 because it's just such a good extender.
It's an amazing extender. It is literally just, if you have a Melodious, you can special summon it from the hand. She's level 3, which comes up. You'll see a little bit why in a little while it comes up. But the other thing she does is if she's special summoned, your other fairy types are going to get 500 attack and defense. That can be relevant, especially if you're pushing. This deck can sometimes have a little bit of trouble going for game, but Sonatas can help with that. And because they can special summon themselves, that ability is going to be always on. But what's also nice is if you don't really have a starter, you can normal summon her and special summon another one, or normal summon any of your girls and special summon the other one, and that starts getting you into link plays. She doesn't lock you out of anything, which is also very nice. So she's just free extension. Her other extender, she's the worst one, is Cannon. I only run 1 Cannon. That's because unlike Sonata, who does not have a once per turn to summon, she is a once per turn to summon. So if you pull her out, she's not going to be able to do it again. Where with Sonata, you can put her back in your hand and reset her. But Cannon is here specifically because it's very possible to get into her and something like Refrain and go into a Baguska or another rank 4 if you have other utility rank 4s. So it's nice to have 1. Her second ability is, I would have said useless until our last game. It just swaps the battle position of one of your Melodious. And I used it because another monster summons them in defense, and I put it in attack to kill.
I remember that. That was insane.
I went, I've never used Cannon's effect. I'm going to put this in attack mode. He went, what?
What? That's an effect?
The secret effect of Cannon, the Melodious Diva, is that
my card has a secret effect.
Yes, exactly. She goes, go to attack. So that's kind of the extender, the utility ones that it can also be, because a lot of these can be starters and extenders. It's a very versatile deck. We're going to get Soprano, the Melodious Songstress. So Soprano is our polymerization. She's kind of like Cartesia, Blazing Cartesia for branded. So she's not a quick effect, but she is going to be able to fuse monsters on the board and in your hand. Or sorry, not in the hand. Specifically not in the hand, just on the board. And it has to include her. So a little bit different than her. The other effect is once per turn, she's going to be able to, if she's special summoned, pull a girl from your grave into your hand, which is what I did. One of the things I did to you to get stuff from back in my hand from Droll. Also level 4, relevant for Baguska. Nothing besides the first movements we talked about have locked us so far. So all of this is basically just engine for whatever you want. Soprano is going to be one you juggle a lot in the deck to get on the board and make more fusions. She's kind of your most precious resource because if you get her banished or run out of her, you're going to be it's going to be really hard to get your fusions on, especially multiples per turn. One of the ways we can help reset her too, because she can't get herself, is going to be Chopina, the Melodious Maestra. You'll notice that there are different titles. Maestra is the most important because some of our fusions will require Maestras. Chopina's thing is she's kind of big. You can't normal summon her very easily, but she can also get any of our light fairies from the graveyard and put it back into her hand. So that can reset our Melodious. We've also got another light fairy that we'll come up to in a minute that will be relevant for that. But just like our first movements and one of our extra deck monsters, she is going to lock us into light fairies as opposed to Melodious. So if you have activated something like an Ash on the same turn, or a Ghost Ogre, or any other monster effect that's not a Melodious or a light fairy, she's not going to be able to activate. So be careful. One of the big things in this deck is you can very easily, what I always call Xeno lock. You always lock yourself into random stuff. This is one that can really trip itself up. Our last Melodious name, and also one of the other most important, is Arya, the Melodious Diva. Her ability is simple. If she's special summoned, your opponent cannot target your Melodious monsters, and they cannot be destroyed by battle. So
that comes up quite a lot because
Yes.
I've tried to Veiler or Imperm you, and I'm like, Arya's on the field. No.
And it doesn't hurt you, except for, again, our refrain. If you're using her Foolish effect, she has to target one of your fusions. Arya does trip that up, so be a little bit careful. You can't refrain if Arya's on board, but otherwise, she's really great as part of your end board, or as, in that case, like we talked about, sort of protection from the Imperms, the Veilers. If you predict it, you can throw her down special summoned, which could be your Pendulums or your first movements or whatever. There's lots of ways to get her special summoned, and it's very important to get her in as part of your end board. There's another one like her called Elegy, which I am not running currently because I don't own one. She'd probably sideboarded if I did. And she is going to be a level 5 that protects your Melodious from being destroyed by card effects. Very good versus Regekis and Dark Holes and other board breakers like that. And getting both on board means that your opponent's going to have a really tough time breaking your board. But fortunately, Arya's been enough for now. Outside of Melodious, we're going to be talking about a lot of some consistency cards and a lot of hand traps and non-engine. The first one is that Shapina helper that we talked about, Herald of Orange Light, which we run 3 of. This is very good versus any really nasty hand traps like D-Shifter or Droll, which can kind of hurt. Also, it could be reset because of Shapina. Shapina just gets a light fairy, and luckily Herald is a light fairy for us and does not conflict. You never want to summon it. You always want to have it in your hand so it doesn't conflict with any of our other starters. Just a very good hand trap. It did get limited because of tier limits a while back. It's back now, baby. We're back at 3.
I know.
It works out. Never should have gone away. We should have killed tier limits faster. Don't get me started on this rant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You and me both. Absolutely. Because I was playing Agents at the time when it happened.
I hate that deck so much. I'm so glad that this is back because it's a fair hand trap. It's sort of
it's kind of like call by. It's a fair call by.
It's a more fair call by because I know that like call by can be a little unfair, especially because it's not once per turn. But this is a -1 in card advantage, meaning that I'm going to discard it and another card, and my opponent's only losing 1 card, so I'm 1 card down. And that makes it a little bit more fair because it is going to negate and destroy. Also relevant, it's going to negate activation. So if your opponent can only activate a monster effect, such as, I know Aliber's not one, but it's the first card I can think of. So if your opponent normal summons Aliber and you negate and destroy, if it said you can only activate it, you've now turned it on to be able to activate again.
Because it technically wasn't activated at once per turn.
Exactly.
I got you.
So keep that in mind when you're playing this deck, is sometimes negating the activation of something could come back to bite you. They might just do it again. Then the rest is going to be more hand traps. I run 3 Ghost Ogres. This is very good versus a lot of stuff like we have a guy who likes to play Sprite sometimes, and it's very good versus Gigantic Sprite. It's very good versus Tenpai when they activate their Sengen summoning. You Ghost Ogre, and it destroys their Sengen summoning, so you can now interact with the dragons. And just at key points in a lot of people's combos, they don't plan around Ghost Ogre. It's so hard to.
I know I didn't. When you Ghost Ogre me.
You hit someone in the right spot, and it just cooks them. There's just not a lot they can do about it. It also hurts Yubel if you're seeing a lot of Yubel. A lot of their continuous traps, they'll activate them. You Ghost Ogre, goes to grave. They really don't have a lot of ways to extend through stuff like that sometimes. So this card ends up being really good if you use it correctly, but it can be very hard to figure out where to use this. This is sort of a one I side out a lot if I'm playing against a deck I'm not familiar with, because it's the hardest one to figure out. I've also got 3 Ash Blossoms, the classic. Of course, we don't really need to talk about how great Ash Blossom is. But there is something that's going to be strange, another conflict. I also run 3 Dominus Purge. So Dominus Purge is a newer hand trap. I can't remember which 3 it locks you out of. It locks you out of using Dark, Water, and Fire cards if you activate it from your hand, like Imperm. You can activate it from your hand if your opponent controls cards, I believe. It might be monsters.
And it's just Ash 2.0.
Yep. If they're adding a card to their hand, specifically, you can activate it. That does shut off Ash Blossom, which sounds a little rough, and it shuts off a couple things in the extra, but that's fine because if you are able to Ash and then Dominus Purge, because it only locks for future, then as long as you're playing the game and you win, it doesn't matter that you can't use more Ashes, and you can't use like SP Little Knight or something in the extra deck.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that I even do in some decks where I play Ash Blossom and I play Dominus Purge in the same deck. You just Ash first and then you Dominus Purge after. Like, just don't activate Dominus Purge right off the bat.
Yep. And if you set it and use it like a normal trap, it's not going to lock you. So if you go first and you think, why would I use Dominus Purge going first? Well, it's because you can set it and now you have 2 Ashes essentially on their turn. It is once per turn, just like Ash Blossom. So you're not going to be able to continuously do it like you can in Imperm. But it's still very powerful in decks that aren't using those 3 attributes, like Melodious, which is primarily light. Just like the other one, Dominus Impulse, if you can use it in your deck, and honestly, if you can afford it, this is the most expensive card in the deck. I think currently it's about $20. Everything else is very cheap. But if you can use it, it's very good. If you can't afford it, just any other hand trap, like Effect Veiler or Ghost Mortar are good. Good.
Even Droll in the main deck would be all right.
Yeah, main Droll is pretty good. I'm trying to think what else. You could just use like a board breaker or something if you plan on going second. There's
Talents Thrust?
Talents and Thrust. I do run Thrust in here because it's cheap now. Luckily, almost everything in the deck is under $10 except for Dominus Purge. It's the one that went above 20 or at about 20. Speaking of Imperm, I have my 3 Imperms. Again, I don't think we really have to explain how excellent Imperm is. I go Imperm over Veilers traditionally because it can't be called by, and it's also not a monster effect, so it doesn't turn on triple tactics, talent, and thrust, limiting my opponent's options on their turn. I do keep the 1 called by. At one point, I did have Crossout Designator as well. I don't have it now, just for space reasons, but it's also a good alternative. You could even run that over the Purge. Another good one that you can run if you can't afford that. I do have the 2 triple tactics thrust in the main.
Those collectors look so nice.
They
really look nice.
We're going to ignore the fact that the third one in the side deck is an ultra, because we're going to act like it's also a collector's rare. But this card's just good consistency. If they ash your Ostinato going second, or if they negate it, you can always tutor up another. Sorry, you can always Rhoda up another one. I play Magic too. It can fetch you Imperms. It can fetch you Dominus Purge. It can fetch you many things. It can fetch you the last card on the deck, which is this is the 1-up Pot of Prosperity, to help you dig further and get to places, as long as, of course, they've got things on the board. So going first, really what it's going to do most of the time is get me a trap, like Imperm, Purge, to help me stop my opponent. If my opponent summons something, maybe they played a Gamma, maybe they nibbed me and I'm able to clear the nib token, it might get me another Ostinato to keep playing. So it's a pretty versatile card. It can easily be sideboarded out. And if you can't afford it, Triple Tactics Talent is also pretty good. They're pretty cheap now. I think the cheapest copy is $5. I've been upgrading to the collectors for a lot of my stuff, as you could probably notice. I love collector's rares and QCRs, but QCRs are very expensive. So
and Shatterfoils too.
Yeah,
I saw the Shatterfoils.
Shatterfoils, worthy max rarity for this deck for a while. And I had like the Shatterfoil or the Starfoil Shibertas and the Shatterfoil and the super first movements, because that was the only copy. And as soon as they upgraded to the shinier versions, I was like, I'm getting the shinier versions. Speaking of those Shibertas, we're going to go ahead and look at this extra deck. So we talked about Ostinato and the other fusions. The primary one you're going to start with is Baka. I'm running 3 because I'm a little bad, and it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to manage your long game if you run 3. They can be reset, because if you add it to your hand with something like Shapina or the Soprano, you can reset it. So sometimes only running 2 is good if you want some more utility. But to be completely honest, I haven't felt the need for another piece of utility, and I have had the 3 come up. So I just run 3 because it's comfortable. But if you get better with the deck and you don't want to run 3, that's also very fine. My favorite card in the deck, and the reason I run this deck all the time, is Etoile, the Melodious Magnificat. This card is one of my favorite sorts of cards, and that's one that's sort of like Destroyed Phoenix Enforcer, which sounds a little weird. So I love cards that do something negative to you and your opponent, in sort of parallel. So what Melodious Magnificat's going to do is it's going to banish any amount of your Melodious monsters until the end phase, and then bounce or return to hand that many face-up cards your opponent controls. So you can banish just her to get her out of the way, or you can banish your whole board if your opponent's trying to wipe and save it, and you know that they can't play through it. or you can do key things to pick them apart. Again, continuous spells, field spells. You could just single hit that and end the turn. Its second effect, one that people don't think about, is if your opponent sends it to grave with their effect, or I believe by battle as well, you just get to summon any of your Melodious from deck or extra deck.
That's insane that you just get a free summon off of that.
You just get a free. I have done plenty of times where you'll summon Baka, which Baka's thing is if she's fusion summoned, your fusion summoned monsters can't be negated. They can't have their activations negated, but not their effects. And when she's special summoned, she's going to get you a summon from deck, and then if she's sent to grave, she's going to get you a summon from grave. So I'll have a Twal die. Baka will come out, get summon Refrain. Refrain will come out, get me Couplet. Couplet will summon another one from grave, and then we'll like Aria if they've wiped the Aria, and then my opponent can't play anymore.
And then you just swarmed.
Yep,
you just swarmed with it.
And they just don't really have anything they can go from there. So if they can't clear some of those things that I've summoned, or she can summon other things from my extra deck. One example is Bloom Diva, the Melodious Choir.
Oh, this is how you beat me last.
This is how I beat you last. a little bit of flexing.
You did. You absolutely did with this card.
I went to another game store and I bought a first edition because I had bought an unlimited, and I thought she deserves a first edition.
After you beat me with this card,
like, she worked out. She is primarily my Tenpai, one of my Tenpai choices. She is an auto win the matchup. There's no way to auto win the matchup in this deck, I don't think. I know it's a pretty good matchup depending on what they draw. It's the non-engine and stuff that really hurts us. But this can't be destroyed by battle or card effect, so it's a little bit hard to clear. And if it's in battle during the damage step, you can destroy the opponent's monster and inflict damage equal to the difference between your attack and their attack.
Yep, you can.
So he made a big guy, and I went, "That's cool. I'm going to hit it, and I'm going to burn you for the rest of your life." And Dad was like,
"Wait,"
because it was something I don't think I could swing over. It's like, God, that's so big, I can't get over it. Oh, I'll just kill it. I'll just blow it up. That's cool. And then the last one we have, this one's a very important one. This is Shuberta, aka Machine Gun DD Crow. Shuberta is, and I forgot to mention this, I will mention this now. Shuberta doesn't do it, but she's a Maestra. Baka is a Maestra, which is important because Etwal and Bloom Diva both require a Melodious Maestra to be summoned. That's why it's very important to keep track of where your Maestras are, like Chopina, Shuberta, and Baka, because you're going to need them to summon a Twal. You're going to need them to summon Bloom Diva. But what Shuberta is going to do is, once per time it's on the field and under the exact wording as a quick effect, it can banish up to 3 cards from either graveyard, targeted. And for every one it does banish, it gets 200. Now, this is 2024, Yu-Gi-Oh! Almost 2025. Why would we want something that says once per time it's on the field, once while it's face up on the field? Well, that's because a Twal can reset it, because if it is banished by a Twal and comes back, it is now a new Shuberta. It still remembers, because it was returned, that it was fusion summoned and special summoned for anything that matters. I know that's really weird, but it does matter sometimes. But now it's on face up on the field for the first time, according to itself, and you can do it again. So there have been turns where in my end board, I'll get double Shubertas on board.
You did that against Chimera. When I was playing Chimera.
Yep. I also play Chimera, so I know exactly how much you hate getting stuff banished. So
you're banishing 6 every single turn with this thing.
And what you can also do, because they're not once per turn, it's just once per face up, so you, of course, can do both. If you banish them both and bring them back, their ability is active in the end phase again, and you can do it again. So you could do 12 in one turn.
You can.
If you're really desperate and need to do something like that. Also, it is because it adds attack points, it can be used during the damage step. Very important. Very advanced thing. So if you know what that means, you know what that means. If not, it just means that it's really hard for your opponent to respond to it. And then our last one, this is another starter / extender, is going to be Bloom Harmonious, the Melodious Composer. Again, this is one you can run 1 of. I feel more comfortable running 2, so I run 2. Her thing is she's going to be able to let you discard a card to special summon 2 Melodious girls, in defense mode with different levels. Her, like the first movement, is going to lock you into only Melodious for the whole turn. So if you go into her, you have to be very careful. She has another effect where I think it's that your opponent can't activate things if a Melodious monster she's pointing to attacks. It almost never comes up, because usually you're just immediately removing her from the field. But do, unlike me, read the second effect of your card if you do play this, because it can come up. As I said, like all these cards have weird effects, and some of them sometimes just comes up. She's also not a Maestra. I wish she was.
That would be really nice to have a 2-card Maestra like that. Just any 2 cards.
Any 2 cards. What you'll summon a lot of the time, you're probably going to summon a Soprano. Sonata is another good one. You've probably used Refrain, but you'll use Refrain. Notice that they're both level 4s, so you can't bring both of those out. Chopina is also good to come out with either of these because she's a Maestra and because she's big and a different level. And that's, you'll occasionally bring out Aria as well, who is also level 4. I wish these 2 were different levels, that you could bring them both out at the same time, but you cannot. But those are the ones you'll typically bring out. If you just need to extend, you can bring out Couplet if you have access to some of these already or if you've already gone through them. And occasionally, again, you can bring out Cannon as the level 4, but you usually don't. You're usually going to bring out the Aria, you're usually going to bring out the Soprano, and then one of these 2. Those are kind of the ones you're really looking to get on board with Bloom Diva. Or Bloom Harmonist, excuse me. Bloom Diva is the one I killed Dad with. And then we go into our non-melodious guys. So the first one is Gravity Controller. It may seem weird, but what you'll do is you'll summon your Baka to the extra monster zone right here. And if they stop her, you can Gravity Controller, and then she goes to grave, and you get to activate her effect. That's the only reason he's in here. He doesn't come up all the time, and a lot of the time he just gets removed from the game for Pot of Prosperity. But it's very important to keep that in mind. If you always summon your Baka to the extra monster zone for that. We mentioned the Baguska. The boy is here. It's very easy for us to get 2 level 4s on board and not lock ourselves. So if we get stopped, or if the board is a little scary, Baguska is a very good option to go into. And then I have 3 rank 2s. I'm going to have SP Little Knight. We all know why SP Little Knight is good. She can banish many things. And also, she can reset your Shibertas. If for some reason you got her and Shiberta on board, she does reset your Shibertas. Then I have Haggard Lizardos. It's a weird one. It's specifically to stop those back rows like Skill Drain. No, that's a different one. Sorry. This is the one to clear nib tokens.
Yeah.
But it gives me nib tokens. I can link it and something else off. This goes in the extra monster zone. I use its effect to get rid of itself, clearing my board. Because you want to have a clear board in this deck.
And you get a draw card.
And I get to draw a card. The one that kills Skill Drain is this one. This just requires 2 fairy monsters. You get rid of her, and she pops a back row.
It's Donner, basically.
Yeah. So that is literally all she's in here for. Like I said, all the non-melodious is purely utilitarian. I win the majority of my games just playing the melodious stuff. Occasionally, I don't think I've ever made him.
I think you made Baguska against me once. I think that was it. When you didn't have an answer to Shifter.
Yeah, I think I just Baguska in the past. Gravity Controller is the most used one. All the rest are good. And there's other ones you can use like Typhon. Chaos Angel's another good one because you got a bunch of lights. You don't have a dark to trigger that really, but you do have lots of ways to hit level 10. And any other like normal, you could run Zeus if you go into Baguska frequently. But that's kind of what I run to make sure that I have plenty of utility.
All right.
Want to do the extra sideboard or do we want to skip that?
Let's go ahead and see the sideboard.
Cool. So
we'll just go over it really quick.
This is changing tonight, but this is what I used to win. I used 3 Dark Ruler No More, Board Breaker. I ended up never using this. I never saw anything that I wanted to use it against. Our locals is a little bit less powerful than a lot of big locals. But if you're coming into boards that have a lot of negates from monsters, this of course is perfect. This comes up a lot. Dimensional Barrier. Our last match, I deburied you twice in one game.
Yeah, you did.
That's why we have the Triple Tactics Thrust. I run 3 just so I can see it if I don't get the Thrust. I have 3 one-ofs in Feather Duster, Triple Tactics Thrust, and Talent. Talent's great. You can main board it, like I said. I'm messing with this one a little bit. I want to put more, but I just don't know where to put it yet. Then 3 Dark Holes. This doesn't come up very often, but I don't like things on my boards when I don't play Reigeki, because if people put weird stuff on my board, I want to clear it and clear my opponent's board. So I board break and I clear my own board with it.
That's kind of wild. I really like that.
Yeah, I did that with Sky Striker as well, because I don't want you to put things on my board. I want to clear my field, so I would Dark Hole rather than Reigeki. And the last one, Droll and Lockbird. Again, this is one that could be main boarded, especially in the current meta. But I'm keeping it in the sideboard or I had it in the sideboard. I may keep it there. Like I said, tonight before the tournament, it's changing a little bit. But this is what I was running to get the victories the past few weeks. Not a whole lot to have to explain with that sideboard. I don't
All
think.
right. Well, thank you so much for the deck profile, Josh. I know this has been a long time coming because you've won twice at locals with this.
I have.
That's insane. And you've topped multiple times with it too. Even if you didn't come in first place, you're always in the top 3, at least with this.
Usually, yeah. And I've been working at it for a while now. Like I played in a couple of your tournaments and I placed pretty well. It's a hard deck and it's so much fun. There's so many cool ways that you can play it. It's become one of my favorite decks. I kind of picked it up because it was cheap, and it still is. It's even cheaper than it was when I picked it up because first movements were like $15 when I picked them up, and now they're pennies.
They are.
The QCR is less than $1. Ostinato was about $5 to $10. It's pennies now. Like I said, the most important card I have is Dominus Purge. You don't need that card. You can pick this deck up for really cheap. It's very fun. It's not going to win at a YCS. It may not do great at a regional, but at your local level, like what we do, what I usually play, it does a lot of work. It's very fun. There's a lot of stuff to learn with it. So pick it up. It may feel hard, but know that there's a lot of growth for it. It's a very good deck to stick with. And it could have some stuff come up in the future. It might. I don't know. We don't know how the game's going to evolve from here, but it's got some resilience. It's got some play. It may be a deck that has some longevity. We'll have to see.
Absolutely. Do you have any shout outs?
I want to shout out Aaron, my boy Aaron.
Absolutely.
He's been on here a couple times. He helps me build a lot of my decks because I don't know a whole lot about like random cards. I kind of know what I know. I play another game as my main game. This is my other game I like to play. So if you ask me something about Marvel Crisis Protocol, I can tell you anything. He's my source for Yu-Gi-Oh! And he helps me a lot with stuff like that. Shout out to Dad for having the channel and having helping run our local tournaments and stuff. And the rest of our locals, of course, are all great. We have a great local community, I think. Everyone here, it's Yu-Gi-Oh! We have bad games sometimes, but it's never been because of the person.
Yeah.
Everyone I played against up here has always been a lot of fun. Shout out to Team Shank. I know we don't do a whole lot of stuff as a team, and I don't have my sleeves. I couldn't find my 15th, so I didn't use them. But that's the team that we are on, me and Aaron, which we don't do a whole lot of stuff. We're kind of all scattered a little bit. But other than that, shout out to my wife. I love her, and my new cat, and my dogs.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for the deck profile. I know everybody's going to enjoy the in-depth about Melodious. It's probably going to be one of the best ones on YouTube because you were so in-depth with it, and I really appreciate it. So not a lot of people have been super in-depth with this one, so I really appreciate it. So thank you so much, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.